5 Mysteries from Idaho. 1. The Disappearance of DeOrr Kunz Jr., 2015. Background: in July 2015, 2-year-old DeOrr Kunz Jr. disappeared from a remote campsite in Lemaitre County, Idaho, sparking one of the most extensive and perplexing search efforts in Idaho's history. DeOrr was camping with his parents, Jessica Mitchell and Vernal DeOrr Kunz Sr., along with Jessica's grandfather, Robert Walton, and a family friend, Isaac Rainwand, at Timber Creek Campground. On July 10, DeOrr's parents claimed that they briefly left him with his great-grandfather while they went to explore the campsite area. When they returned minutes later, they found that DeOrr had vanished without a trace. The family immediately began searching and called 911, initiating a massive search operation involving helicopters, divers, search dogs, and hundreds of volunteers. Despite these efforts, not a single trace of DeOrr was found. Investigation: authorities initially treated the case as a potential abduction, but there were no signs of forced entry or evidence that anyone else had been at the campsite. Investigators then shifted their focus to the family members, finding inconsistencies in their stories. DeOrr's parents were considered persons of interest but were never charged, as there was no concrete evidence linking them to their son's disappearance. One of the most obscure details of this case is that search dogs detected the scent of human remains in the reservoir near the campsite, but divers found nothing. Additionally, Jessica's mother claimed that DeOrr's favorite toy, a toy truck he was never without, was found in her daughter's possession weeks after the disappearance, even though the parents claimed he had it with him at the campsite. Isaac Rainwand, the family friend, had a criminal record and was initially not forthcoming about his involvement that day, adding to the suspicion. Despite these red flags, no evidence has surfaced to solve the mystery. Theories: there are several theories about what happened to DeOrr. One theory suggests that he may have wandered off into the wilderness and was taken by wildlife, but searchers found no evidence of an animal attack. Another theory is that the parents accidentally caused DeOrr's death and covered it up, as indicated by the inconsistencies in their statements. Some locals believe in a more sinister possibility, that DeOrr was abducted and that one or more family members may have been involved. Despite years of investigation, the case remains unsolved, leaving Idahoans and true crime enthusiasts baffled by the little boy's disappearance. 2. The Bigfoot sighting at Redfish Lake, 1967. The dense forests of Idaho have long been a hotspot for Bigfoot sightings, but one of the most famous encounters occurred in 1967 near Redfish Lake in the Sawtooth National Forest. A group of campers reported a terrifying encounter with a large, hairy creature that left behind a series of footprints and unexplained evidence. The encounter occurred in the summer of 1967 when a group of young campers was fishing near the lake. One evening, they heard strange, guttural noises coming from the woods. Moments later, they saw a massive figure, estimated to be over 8 feet tall, covered in dark hair, emerging from the forest. The campers fled, and when they returned with authorities, they found large footprints in the soft mud, measuring over 18 inches long. Investigation: local authorities were initially skeptical but took plaster casts of the footprints and examined the campsite. Despite their best efforts, no concrete evidence of the creature's existence was found, and the case was dismissed as a hoax or a misidentified bear. What many people don't know is that over the years, several similar sightings have been reported in the Redfish Lake area. In fact, a local newspaper published an article about a logging crew in the 1940s who claimed to have seen a similar creature, suggesting that this may be a long-standing phenomenon. Furthermore, Native American tribes in the region have oral traditions about a hairy giant that roams the forests, adding an element of folklore to the mystery. Theories: some believe the Redfish Lake sighting was an elaborate hoax, perhaps staged by the campers themselves. Others think it was a case of mistaken identity, with the campers seeing a bear or another animal. However, cryptozoologists argue that the footprints and eyewitness accounts provide compelling evidence of Bigfoot's existence. The mystery of the Redfish Lake Bigfoot remains one of Idaho's most intriguing unsolved cases. 3. The Boise Hole, 1988–present. In the heart of downtown Boise, an empty construction pit known as the Boise Hole has puzzled residents for decades. The hole, originally excavated in 1988, was intended to be the site of a massive skyscraper, but it has remained an empty lot ever since, plagued by a series of mysterious incidents and failed projects. In 1988, developers began digging the foundation for a planned 34-story tower, which was to be the tallest building in Idaho. However, financial troubles, legal disputes, and a series of accidents halted construction, and the site was abandoned. Over the years, numerous developers have attempted to build on the lot, but every project has inexplicably failed, leading some to believe that the site is cursed. Investigation. There have been countless investigations into the cause of the construction failures, ranging from geological surveys to financial audits. While some attribute the failures to economic downturns and poor planning, others point to a series of unexplained events, such as unexplained sinkholes, mysterious gas leaks, and even reports of construction workers falling ill without explanation. One little-known fact is that the Boise Hole is situated on what was once a Native American burial ground, leading some to believe that the land is cursed. Additionally, in the 1920s, the site was home to a series of unsolved murders, which has only added to the mystery. Theories. The most common theory is that the site is simply plagued by bad luck and financial mismanagement. However, some residents believe that the Boise Hole is haunted, and that supernatural forces are preventing any successful construction. Despite multiple attempts to develop the land, the Boise Hole remains an eerie reminder of the unexplained mysteries lurking beneath the surface of everyday life. 4. The Phantom Barber of Pocatello, 1942. During the summer of 1942, the small town of Pocatello was gripped by fear as an unknown assailant dubbed the Phantom Barber terrorized residents by breaking into homes and cutting their hair while they slept. The Phantom Barber's reign of terror began in June 1942, when several women reported waking up to find that their hair had been cut during the night. The intruder left behind no clues and did not steal anything, making his motives all the more baffling. Panic spread through the town as more incidents were reported, with some victims claiming they saw a shadowy figure standing over them before fleeing into the night. Investigation. Local police launched a massive manhunt but were unable to capture the Phantom Barber. Despite increased patrols and even the involvement of the FBI, the mysterious intruder managed to evade capture. The break-ins eventually stopped as suddenly as they had begun, leaving residents wondering who the Phantom Barber was and why he targeted them. One obscure fact about this case is that several victims reported a strange smell in their bedrooms after the break-ins, leading some to speculate that the Phantom Barber used chloroform to subdue them. Additionally, a man named William Dolan was arrested and convicted of an unrelated crime around the same time, but he always denied being the Phantom Barber. Theories. Some believe that the Phantom Barber was simply a prankster who enjoyed terrifying people, while others think he may have had more sinister intentions. The lack of any theft or assault led many to believe that the Phantom Barber was suffering from a psychological disorder. To this day, the identity of the Phantom Barber remains a mystery. 5. The Lewis Clark Valley Murders, 1979–1982. The Lewis Clark Valley, which covers parts of Idaho and Washington, became the scene of a string of unsolved disappearances and murders between 1979 and 1982. These cases involved 5 victims, most of them young women, whose lives ended mysteriously, with investigators and the public left with more questions than answers. The known victims of the Lewis Clark Valley murders include Christina White, Jacqueline, Brandy, Miller, Christina Nelson, Stephen Pearsall, and Kristen David. All of these cases are linked by both the geographic proximity and the suspicious circumstances surrounding their disappearances and deaths. Details of the cases. 1. Christina White, 1979. Disappearance. Christina White, a 12-year-old girl, was last seen on April 28, 1979, after attending the Asotin County Fair. She felt unwell and called her mother from a friend's house, asking to be picked up. Her mother, believing it was just a heat-related issue, suggested she drink some water and rest until she could pick her up. By the time her mother arrived, Christina had vanished. She was never seen again. Investigation. The search for Christina turned up no significant leads. The friend's house where she was last seen had an adult male present, who later emerged as a person of interest but was never formally charged. Some investigators believe this man may have been connected to the other cases, but the lack of physical evidence has left this theory unconfirmed. 2. Christina Nelson and Brandy Miller, 1982. Disappearance. Christina Nelson, 21, and her stepsister Brandy Miller, 18, went missing on September 12, 1982, while walking from Christina's apartment to a local grocery store in Lewiston, Idaho. They were never seen alive again. The route they took was a short walk along US Highway 12, a major road connecting Lewiston to other towns. Discovery of bodies. Their remains were discovered nearly 2 years later, in March 1984, by a man searching for scrap metal along the Kendrick-Green Creek Highway. Their bodies were found at the bottom of a steep embankment wrapped in garbage bags, suggesting that the killer had attempted to conceal them. Due to the state of decomposition, it was impossible to determine the exact cause of death, but investigators believe they were likely murdered shortly after their disappearance. 3. Stephen Pearsall, 1982. Stephen Pearsall was a janitor at the Lewiston Civic Theater and was last seen on September 12, 1982, the same night that Christina Nelson and Brandy Miller went missing. Pearsall had stopped by the theater after a night out with friends to retrieve his saxophone and do some laundry. He vanished without a trace, and his belongings, including his saxophone, were left behind in the theater. Despite the close timing and location, no direct connection has ever been proven between Pearsall's disappearance and the deaths of Christina and Brandy. Investigation. Pearsall's disappearance added another layer of confusion to the case. Authorities speculated that he may have witnessed the abduction of Christina and Brandy or that he himself fell victim to the same killer. Despite intensive searching, no trace of Pearsall has ever been found, making him one of the most enigmatic figures in this mystery. 4. Kristen David, 1981. Disappearance. Kristen David was a 22-year-old University of Idaho student who disappeared on June 26, 1981, while cycling from Moscow, Idaho, to Lewiston. She was planning to move to Boise and was on her way to arrange transportation for her belongings. Witnesses reported seeing her riding along the highway, but she never arrived at her destination. Discovery of remains. 8 days after her disappearance, Kristen's dismembered body was found in plastic bags floating in the Snake River near Clarkston, Washington. Her remains were meticulously dismembered with surgical precision, suggesting that her killer had anatomical knowledge. This gruesome detail distinguishes her case from the others, yet investigators believe her death is connected to the other Lewis-Clark Valley victims. A haunting detail about the Nelson-Miller case is that Christina Nelson had left a note at her apartment stating they were walking to the grocery store and would be back soon. This note is often cited as evidence that they intended to return and that something unexpected happened. Another peculiar aspect is that there were reports of a suspicious white van seen near the sites of multiple disappearances, leading investigators to believe the vehicle may be connected. Despite several attempts to track down this van, it was never found. Investigation. The investigation into the Lewis-Clark Valley murders was hampered by jurisdictional challenges, as the cases occurred in different states, involving multiple police agencies. This complicated the sharing of information and slowed the progress of the investigation. One person of interest in the case was a man who worked at the Lewiston Civic Theater, where both Christina Nelson and Brandy Miller were known to visit. This man had a history of peculiar behavior and gave inconsistent statements to investigators. Some of the victims had known or been in contact with him, raising suspicions. However, there was never enough evidence to charge him, and he eventually moved out of the area. A task force was established in the early 1990s, involving the FBI, Idaho State Police, and local law enforcement agencies. While they gathered substantial information, the lack of physical evidence and the time elapsed since the murders have made it challenging to make progress. Theories. Serial killer theory. The most widely accepted theory is that a single individual was responsible for all the disappearances and murders. The geographical proximity of the cases, the age range of the victims, and the method of operation suggest a common perpetrator. However, the differences in how the bodies were disposed of, particularly in Kristen David's case, make it difficult to confirm this theory. Multiple killers theory. Another theory is that different perpetrators were responsible for each case, possibly taking advantage of the heightened fear and confusion in the valley to commit their crimes. This theory suggests that the killers might have exploited the lack of communication between law enforcement agencies to avoid detection. Local connection theory. Some locals believe that the killer might have been someone from the area, familiar with the valley's layout and adept at avoiding detection. This theory suggests that the perpetrator had knowledge of the victim's routines and movements, allowing them to strike at opportune moments. Lingering questions. Why was Stephen Pearsall never found, and what connection might he have had with Christina Nelson and Brandy Miller? Could there be a reason why the murders suddenly stopped after 1982? Were other potential victims in the region overlooked, or was the killer incarcerated or deceased? The Lewis-Clark Valley murders remain one of the most perplexing unsolved cases in the Pacific Northwest, with investigators, families, and true crime enthusiasts still searching for answers decades later. Conclusion. Idaho is often perceived as a land of serene landscapes and vast wilderness, but the mysteries within its borders tell a much darker story. These unsolved cases reveal a side of Idaho that is eerie, perplexing, and hauntingly unexplainable, proving that even the most picturesque places can harbor deep and unsettling secrets. Thank you for watching. If you found these Idaho mysteries intriguing, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell for more chilling tales from around the country.